Hi, welcome back to the Barrett channel again. Welcome to another video here in my new studio here in Shenzhen. I'm joined by Tony. Now, as a lot of you will know, I'm quite an opinionated person, and I have opinions on a lot of things now. Some of you may agree with those opinions, some of you may not. That's okay. You know, if everybody thought the same, we'd have a very boring world. So I do think it's good to have different opinions. I like to think I build my opinions on experience I've had or factual information I've read. I do a lot of reading. I'm very interested in geopolitics, but you know, above all, I think I base a lot of my opinions on experiences I've had from either traveling or living here in China. This video, Tony's going to sort of explore some of my opinions by, I guess, asking me some questions. So it might give you guys a little bit more of an insight into the sort of person I am. So let's go.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to introduce Tony, if you're not aware of it, well, maybe you introduce yourself.
I will introduce myself, yeah. Okay. Hi, welcome to the Barrett channel. My name is Tony, and I've been in China a few years longer than Lee. And I've seen Lee progress throughout his course of an experience in China and change his jobs. And then maybe almost 2 years ago, Lee started this channel. And I've watched his videos, and I remember I've known him personally, and I've been quite interested in the way he interviews people and he talks about his opinions. And I recently asked him, well, why don't you be interviewed instead of being on the fence and playing both, because some comments have said, oh, they're saying this and saying that to please the people. Be more direct. If you're asked a question, then you have to answer it. So that's the purpose of this, and I'm going to ask Lee some questions that he may not have been asked before.
Yeah. So let's go.
Let's go. Lee.
Yeah.
Are you the genuine father of Ollie?
I am. Yeah. Ollie
Okay.
is, as far as I know, Ollie is definitely my son.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it true that you were privileged and grew up in a cardboard box in the Midlands when you was young?
Absolutely. I grew up in a very sort of, I wouldn't say average family, but a very normal family. My father was a factory worker. My mother was a factory worker. I was an only child. So I had a great upbringing. You know, I feel my parents did a very good job. They give me good moral direction, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And you came to China initially working for someone else?
Actually, not working for someone else. I had my own business in the UK that was manufacturing product, and through someone else, we were using a factory in Hangzhou. Okay. So I actually came to visit that factory. Basically, that was my first time.
And what was
here.
your thoughts on this country prior to coming here? What were your concerns?
Okay, I didn't have concerns. My thoughts were that it was much more underdeveloped than I thought it was. I had a feeling that it was still sort of a bit like let's say the Wild West. You know, the roads are all not tarmacked and stuff like that. You know, sort of dirt roads and things like that. I'd actually seen a little bit of Shanghai on the TV, so I was aware that it wasn't all like that. But I still thought vast swathes of China were like, you know, old.
If you change £10 into RMB at the moment, you get round about 8.90?
About 8.7, 8.8.
What was
RMB.
it when you came here?
Oh, when I first came here, I was getting 15 yuan to the pound.
Yeah.
And that was back in 2007, you know. That was amazing then.
Yeah,
you know.
it was. Financially, there was good days. Okay, so the first town or city that you went to?
The first town or city that I went to was Shanghai. I landed in Shanghai airport.
Here in Shanghai, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just in the taxi from the airport to my hotel. I'd booked quite a good hotel. It was a 5-star hotel, the Ritz-Carlton.
Yeah.
And the reason I booked that is because having 15 RMB to the pound, it was like the same price as a budget hotel would have been in the UK.
Yeah.
But I'm in the taxi from Shanghai airport to the hotel, and I'm just like, my mouth's like open because I can't believe what a
Yeah.
modern, developed city Shanghai is, and that was 15 years ago. You know,
Yeah.
and I was just gobsmacked.
Google wasn't what it is now. Did it help you at all? The internet? Did you?
Not really. I did very little looking on the internet. I mean, most of the information I got about China was just what I'd heard in the press. I didn't actually know a huge amount about it till I came here.
Okay, all right. So from Shanghai, you set up business or started an office?
Well, initially, I was doing this manufacturing. I was selling bean bags.
Yeah.
And I was having manufactured in this company in Hangzhou, shipping them back to the UK. But later, I got a contract with a UK company to do data processing in China.
Yeah.
And I set up an office initially in Shanghai where I had sort of 6 or 7 young graduates working for me doing data processing.
Okay. Now, in the length of time I've been in China, there's been, let's say, 90% of my working career in China and social circle, 90% of it has been positive, 10% has been quite negative, and those negative sides of China can be quite demoralizing and depressing. Okay, so if I say one negative comment about the negative side of China, which can be overcome, are you willing to say a negative side?
Yeah, I mean, there's always negative things, but I think sometimes though you've got to be, are they negative things or are they things that are just different to where you come from?
Yeah, they are different.
That you perceive to be negative because they're not like the way you've always been used to doing them. Like, for example, things here that would be a 5-minute thing in the UK because you know the system turn into something that you perceive negative here because it becomes very frustrating. It takes a lot longer, and that's one, maybe because the communication is more difficult, and 2, because you don't know the system.
Okay, I think you fear the question.
No.
Okay, no, because you're taking this negative side far too big. Some of the things that can happen in China, when you first get off the plane and you catch a taxi, you may find that the taxi driver is similar to any other taxi driver around the world, and they charge too much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's not a positive, that's a negative, but that's worldwide negative. You can't say, Chinese taxi drivers rip me off.
That's happened to me. Yeah. That's definitely happened to me here.
Let's say, for instance, you go to London, you come out the airport, or you get on the bus, and you might see 2 or 3 people, and they're staring at you, and you look at them, and then they may say, "What are you staring at?" And they become quite aggressive. What are you looking at? You know, maybe in Glasgow, or wherever you get off the plane, the first city you come to, there's one, and you staring at them, but you're just looking at them because you're being friendly. In China, they will stare at you, and they will not say, "What are you looking at?" They're inquisitive. And you may say, as I have done, and I'm sure Lee and Ollie have done, you may say, "Ni hao ma," or "Hello," whatever, and they say nothing. They still stare. And you think, "Oh, I can't," whatever. So these are the kind of negative things. And they're not negative, sort of like blowing up China. They're just little things that we're not used to about their culture.
Yeah.
Can you add another one to that you found a little aggravating or a little bit sort of, that's strange, and you get used to it?
Yeah, I mean, not so much Shanghai, but when I lived in Guangzhou, I feel there it was very rough and tumble when you're getting on and off of public transport. You've really got to push and shove, else you don't get on.
It's worse when you can't get off.
That's happened to me a couple of times. But I mean, you have people there, the doors open, and it's just a big pile on, But again, then you move to sort of Shenzhen, and that's not anywhere near the same. One is because there's probably less people use the metro here, but people are just different here. They come from all over China, and I actually think it's something of the older generation where it was like, you've got to fight for yourself, because if you don't, nobody else is going to fight for you. So they've got this, the older generation have got this bit of an attitude where, I'm getting on, else I don't get the seat. If I don't get on first, I don't get the seat, And I think it's a little bit of that. Other negative things I found, or things that used to be challenging when I first arrived, was crossing the bloody road.
Yeah.
Even a zebra crossing, You know, like you're in the UK, you're at a zebra crossing, cars will stop.
Just
that
as you
didn't
reach
happen
it, they
in
stop.
China.
Yeah.
You know, and yet it's starting to now. You know, we were out walking last night, and you were, oh, the cars are stopping. You know, and that's something that never used to happen. I mean, for me right now, the biggest thing that aggravates me about China is having to use a VPN to access a lot of the sites that I want to use, which are Western sites.
Yeah.
You know, and although I understand that's the rule of China, you know, I have to use those tools, and that bugs me because you get slow access. Sometimes you can't connect, and that really bugs me. But I also,
if there was a tick list said, do you prefer this VPN blockage? And I mean, I would tick yes. I prefer the VPN blockage. Alex, if you want, the reason is because I don't want China to be influenced too much by the West. Because I think if they change their culture,
there is that argument. I mean, you have a law in China that it's an offence to spread fake news. Now, personally, I think that is a good law. There's there's a law that so they have this law, so you can't spread fake news, and sometimes that law goes a bit too far. There's people who get in trouble who have obviously spread some news that's a joke, and they've got into trouble, and that sometimes goes a bit too far. But on the other hand, I get alarmed by the amount of fake news and conspiracy that circulates in Western countries, and that's not set to get better. That's set to get worse. I think for a young person growing up in the West, they really have a minefield to navigate as far as fake news is concerned. I mean, you've only got to look at the recent coronavirus pandemic where somebody spread some news online in the West that it's 5G towers that are causing coronavirus, and you've got people burning them down in the UK, you know, and I think that can get very, very dangerous. You look at, you know, other news that spread. You look at what happened in the Capitol building in the US. You know, and this is because any news is allowed to just spread like wildfire on social media. I think that can be a very dangerous thing, and I think that's probably what you're going to allude to, right?
No, actually it's not, because I said to Lee at the beginning, before we even turned the cameras on, don't go off on a tangent, and I think you just did there, because you did, and you're starting to slowly badmouth Western.
Well, it's not bad now. It's just seeing a difference in systems. And,
a difference in systems, the way they allow things to happen and progress, and then make the system work.
The reason I say that is because I get a lot of the commenters negatively about China. Go, oh, there's no free speech in China. You know, so...
Okay, so let's go back to the questions. Lee, do you feel... if you had to categorize the amount of free speech in percentage wise, there's 100%. Which one has the most? UK or China? UK or China, not America.
I think it's similar, but in different areas.
Okay, just give it a number.
So I'd say, God, it's hard to.
No, it's not hard. Just give it.
I'd say you fairly, apart from not being able to be critical of government and politicians here, I think you can pretty much say everything else you want to say.
Yeah.
Whereas in the West, you can criticise government all you like and politicians, but there's a lot of things in society you can't say.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of similar, but just in different areas.
50% each one?
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, if there's 100%, I would say I have probably got 65% freedom of speech in China and 35% freedom of speech in the UK. I wouldn't say 50-50. There's more things I can't say in the UK than I can say in China.
I suppose. Yeah,
because the only subject I can't talk about in China really is the TTs. You know the 3 Ts.
Go on.
Tiananmen Square. Taiwan, and there's another one. I can't remember the name. Don't talk about those publicly, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You know. But in the UK, the issue is so big. Don't talk about this, don't talk about that. So, okay, so working on a percentage again, where would you rather rent a property, UK or China?
Oh, China.
Why?
Because from a financial point of view, you get far more for your money in China.
Okay, who are the best landlords? UK or?
Well, that really depends on your experience. I've always had pretty much most of the time, positive experiences in China, but I know some people have had very negative experiences.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I've always had pretty good experiences in the UK as well, but I also know people who've had very bad experiences in the UK. So I really think that's a difficult question for me to answer, because I've had very similar experiences. The one thing that irks me a little bit here is when I want some furniture moving, because I want my own furniture, they won't do that, and they will quite happily lose me as a tenant because they won't do something small. But for me personally, I've had pretty good experiences in both countries where I've rented, so I find it difficult to say one or the other there.
Still on the fence there. Okay.
I'm still on the fence there.
Still on the fence there. Okay. Water.
Yeah.
Not the drinking water.
Yeah.
River water. Percentage. English river water is safer, cleaner to swim in than Chinese river water.
I'd say, without having a great deal of knowledge, I'd say the UK. That's my perception. My perception is water here is not as safe as it is in the UK. However, I see there's a big push here. I was recently somewhere where they were telling us about this system they've got to clean river water up, and we were on that river and it looked pretty, I'm no expert, but it looked nice, clean river. But I have walked past places here where I've seen water and it ain't good.
Right.
There's a lot of rubbish in there and stuff.
The Seven Gorge Dam, you've been there, yeah? Is it called the Seven Gorges Dam?
Three Gorges Dam.
Three Gorges Dam.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Okay. There's another four coming, but Three Gorges Dam, is it the biggest in the world?
I don't know if it's the biggest, but it's one of the biggest.
One of the
certainly.
biggest. Do you think that this has had any influence on the recent flooding? Because of trying to control such a large amount of water along the Yellow River, the Yangtze.
Think any projects that have dams where you're trying to control the flow of water have negatives and positives. Now, if you look at historical flooding in China, way more people got killed
every year.
Yeah,
millions drowned.
And now sometimes the Chinese authorities have the decision: do we flood this area or that area? They've got to flood one because we're in an era where we're getting unprecedented, strange weather.
Yeah.
Right, we're getting unprecedented rainfall, and we've seen this recently in Zhengzhou.
Yeah.
I don't care where in the world that had been, that would have flooded. When you get 600 millimeters of rain in 24 hours, I don't think there's anywhere on earth that can control that. But going back to the dam, it causes issues because somewhere that wouldn't have previously flooded might now flood. But they try to control it as best they can to cause minimal disruption and effect. So I think by having them is a positive thing as opposed to a negative thing. But on the ecological side, you could argue it's a negative thing.
Yeah, okay. I know from your YouTube channels and from knowing you personally, Lee is extensively travelled throughout China, much more than I am. And you've seen some sites that have been overwhelming,
Yeah.
And you also have been to sites where they've constructed cities almost, and they've not completed.
Correct.
Do you find that their construction skills are equal to Western construction skills?
I think for civil engineering projects, they're way ahead of the West.
Okay.
I think when it comes to apartments, they still lag a little behind the West. Now, that's not on the overall construction, but I think that is on the attention to detail for finishing. So, for example, and this may sound very trivial, but you'll have far more doorways and walls here that are not, right angle. Like I've moved into this apartment was built about 15 years ago, so I ordered some shelving. Now I made the mistake of measuring one end and not the other. When I come to fit the shelving in, it fit fine one end but not the other end, because there's a 2 centimetre difference from the top to the bottom.
Height,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So things like that. I feel from a point of view of, like, if you're building bridges or tunnels, I think, wow, the Chinese are on it.
Yeah.
They have got some projects that I reckon that, Western countries wouldn't even attempt. I think they're capable of it, but I think the execution of projects. So, you look at big projects in the UK, and they always go way over time and they always go way over budget. They're not good at managing and executing projects, whereas here I think they are. I think they're very good at managing and executing projects. They're on a big scale. However, I see some of the finishes inside Chinese apartments ain't great. So that's the sort of pickup I feel. I think if you go back, in Shenzhen, they're actually demolishing a lot of properties they built 20 years ago. I get the feeling they put those up to solve a problem, knowing that they ain't there forever. Whereas I think in the UK, they build for much longer. And I do think they're starting to do that now in China. I think the quality of construction of more recent stuff is way, way better than it was even 10 years ago. Because I feel the Chinese are fast learners.
Okay.
They learn very quickly from their mistakes.
Yeah. Okay. I would agree with that. They are fast learners. And when it comes to construction, the finishing part of the construction, the interior, let's say, of some things, maybe they lack a little bit of expertise. Finesse. Yeah. Whether it's in the tiling or the painting and the mixture of the, we know that the cement will fall off when the temperature changes, and things like this. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to divert a little bit now. Okay, sticking on the subject of Lee, he's been here on and off, but mostly about 13 years. 2007. Oh, 2007. Yeah. Okay, same as myself, coming and going. I'm going to ask Lee some personal questions now, and let's say I'm going to ask you 10 questions. All right. Okay. Off the top of your head, just answer them with one word. Name one Chinese fruit in Chinese. I'm going to see if Lee knows 10 Chinese words. One Chinese fruit.
Yeah, 苹果.
And what is it?
Apple.
Okay, one Chinese vegetable.
胡萝卜.
Okay, good.
Carrot.
Yeah. Okay, one meat.
羊肉.
One small city.
Small city. 矫情.
One stationary equipment.
B.
Which is pen. Yeah, okay. Yeah. One government official who is not the president.
Hua Chengyan.
Oh, wow, okay. One company.
Huawei.
Okay, and how do you say one part of the body?
Oh, pizza.
What is that?
Nose.
Okay, well done. I think that was about 10. Well done. Yeah, that's impressive. So
yeah, I know quite a few Chinese words. My pronunciation's not great, and I'm not good at putting them together in sentences. But often I can hear Chinese people talking. If it's general chit chat, I can get the gist a lot of the time of what they're saying by the words I know. So again, I want to go back to this thing where we get this thrown at us all the time. Oh, you can't know much about China because you don't speak Chinese. And I think that's just a fallacy.
Yeah.
I reckon I know quite a lot about China and I don't speak the language. Okay, there might be some intricacies I don't know, but I have a Chinese partner. I know a lot of Chinese friends who speak excellent English and we talk a lot. I learn a lot like that,
Yeah. Having a Chinese partner, is it very different from having a Western partner?
I think my experience is yes. I find Chinese women a little bit more jealous and possessive than Western women.
And what's it like trying to...
But I also find Chinese women are very good partners. They care a lot about your health and your well-being.
Do they care about you more because they care more about the money and they want to make sure that the health is good to earn the money for the income?
In my experience, no.
Why do they care about you more, do you think?
I just think that's in their nature, you know. I just think that I think there's been a difference where women have only become more independent women in China more recent times than Western women. So they still have this sort of homely role, whereas there's a lot more Western women now are career women, and I see that happening in China too. You know, previously in China it was, you're 23, 24, you need to be married because by the time you get to 28 it's too late. So there was always this pressure for women to get married and become homemakers. So I still think, you know, especially girls who are older than 25, 26, they still have a bit of that mentality here, whereas younger girls now are thinking, well, you know, I'm not going to be pushed into marriage by my parents, I want to have a career, and their thinking's a little bit different.
And you think that is the thinking
I think that's part of the thinking.
But you think that's the thinking of the people in Western culture? They have more freedom and do what they like when they're younger.
I think it's that they're taught in society to be more independent. Not necessarily that you're going to grow up to be the homemaker.
Being in a relationship, how does it affect your diet?
Sometimes that's
Before
tricky.
you answer that question, Lee has got a fridge downstairs full of Mars bars and Twix.
Well, no, it's not full of Mars bars.
Well, there's a lot of them.
I do enjoy Mars bars and Twix,
Yeah,
but,
not a Chinese thing.
I will be honest, Guangdong style Chinese food is not my favourite kind of food, so I do struggle here a little bit. I will eat a fusion of Western and Chinese food. Now, if we're talking about sort of more central and northern China, I really enjoy that food because I think it lines up with more Western food. Guangdong and southern China like a lot more soup-based stuff. They like rice noodle, they like boiled rice. Whereas if you go more north, it's more wheat noodle, so it's more like pasta. They like more kind of meat, which is sort of more meaty. Here they like a lot of sort of cook it on, chop it all up with the bones and the gristle and the fat and the skin. I'm not a big fan of that. You know, I really
a bone
prefer,
in every bite.
Yeah, so
whatever meat you're eating.
Yeah, so sometimes it's a little bit more challenging living here in Western China, and sometimes me and my partner will eat different foods, you know. But my partner does like Western food also.
Oh, that's good. That's
so
good.
Sometimes we'll eat Western, sometimes we'll eat Chinese. But it is more challenging in southern China, I feel, than when I lived in Shanghai.
Okay. I'm highlighting some of the problems that I've experienced to see how you respond to these questions. Another one that affects me dearly is timekeeping and punctuality. Do you find that Chinese people are good at this particular subject?
I've had mixed experiences. I've
on the fence.
I am a little bit on the fence, and I draw from my experience. I generally think, on the whole, probably, I don't know. This is a hard one because I find young people like Ollie, for instance. He's not
Chinese.
as good a timekeeper as me. I think it's a generation thing rather than a culture thing.
All right.
That's my dad did national service, right?
Yeah.
So he instilled discipline of timekeeping into me because that's a big thing in the army, as you know.
Yeah.
Whereas I obviously didn't instill that as well into my kids because they don't have the same attitudes. I somewhat think it's probably the same in China. If I was to go one side or the other, I would probably say, from my experience, people in the UK are more punctual than people in China. But that's just my personal experience.
So let's say, for instance, for whatever reason, it's out of your control, you're late to meet someone. Are they angry, aggressive, or sarcastic?
Not really
towards you.
But my personality, I will try to message them and let them know I'm going to be late.
Okay, and if someone's late to come to you, inside your frustration is building up?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It depends whether they message me. I mean, I've had examples where Chinese people have been late, but they've messaged me and they've explained, and I'm okay with that. Then I've had other examples where they haven't, and they've just turned up late, and that bugs me a little bit, you know.
Yeah. Okay. If you grew up in China, i.e., if you were Chinese with a similar mentality that you got now and knowledge and experience of life, would you send Ollie to the UK?
No.
If he was Chinese? No, I don't mean send him for education. If he went to the UK, would you say, oh, don't go there, or America?
No, not at all.
Would you prevent him from travelling?
No, not at all. I'd warn him to be careful.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, in China right now, I feel the cities are safer than Western cities. So I'd be concerned. I think it'd be very dangerous now to go from spending a long time in China then to go back to a city in the West. I think it'd be very easy to fall into the same habits they are, where you can walk around at 11 p.m. at night and you've got your phone out and you're looking at your phone. You know, we make YouTube. I walk around with thousands of dollars worth of camera equipment. I think if you did that, if I was walking around a big city in the UK at 10:30 at night with $2,000 or $3,000 worth of camera equipment and an expensive phone, I think there's a highly likelihood I would have a run into issues with people wanting to try and take that equipment off me.
Okay.
Whereas I don't feel I would have that issue in Chinese cities.
Okay. In other parts of Shenzhen as one of the largest police forces in China.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is, and one of the most advanced. Yeah, that they have a lot.
Yeah, sure.
Of
China, Shenzhen is probably the most advanced city from technology in the whole of China.
Yeah,
if not the whole of the world.
How would you? Do you think that is there anything that the Chinese police could learn from Western culture, or Western culture police could learn from Chinese police? Is there anything they could exchange?
Well, I see that Chinese police, from my experience and what I've seen, are much more...
Do they carry guns?
No. They're not anywhere near as aggressive as Western police, what I see. Now, I see police in the US as very aggressive. You know, we all see
the US, okay.
Yeah, we all see these videos where literally, I've seen videos where they've approached a guy and the guy was obviously under the influence of either alcohol or drugs. And he's not done exactly what the police have told him, right? And they've just shot him.
Okay.
And I think there's no need for that at all. That's completely out of order.
I think some tubers might say, yeah, but he was. Did the colour have any effect on the colour?
He was a black guy, yeah.
The police officer was what?
Was white, yeah.
Okay.
But there may be issues there.
Yeah.
You know, in the UK, I feel that we're somewhere in between. The UK police don't carry guns as a. Normally, we do have gun units, and actually, my daughter's husband was in a gun unit. I feel the police, to some extent in the UK, have lost respect. Whereas I think in China,
because of bad policing,
not because of bad policing, because I think of soft government policy.
Yeah.
Whereas in China, I still think the police have a lot of respect, but I don't see the level of crime in China. Now, people will argue that's because they've got cameras everywhere and the government's watching every move. I don't believe that's the case. I don't believe the government are watching every person. I believe the government are watching people who they need to watch, but I don't think that's any different to the UK.
Right.
You know, we had a few years ago when we had the terrorism issues in the UK, right?
Yeah.
MI5 or MI6, whichever division, come out and says we need to be watching 2,000 or 3,000 people who are on the terrorist list, right? But we don't have the resources to do that, so we're only watching 600. Now, I believe China do have the resources to watch all the people they need to be watching. But I think if you're just an average person in China who's a law-abiding citizen, the government are not watching everything you do. Why would they? If you do something that puts you at some suspicion that you're up to no good, then yes, I do believe the government here will be keeping a closer eye on you. I think that as foreigners, I think as a foreign YouTuber, the government are keeping an eye on us. They'd be stupid not to be, right?
Yeah.
But what's wrong with that? You know, I think if a government in a country are not keeping an eye on people who are up to no good, then that's a failing of the government in those countries. I think it's the government's responsibility to protect their population and be keeping an eye on people who are maybe up to no good.
There's a number of illegal immigrants going into the United States. Okay, we've seen it on the media.
Yeah.
There's a number of illegal immigrants going into the UK from France, by dingers, and then they work out how they're going to stay there at a later date, but getting in, and everyone knows they're doing it by illegal means. Does China contain illegal immigrants as far as you're aware?
They have a problem with immigration.
Which part?
Well, I have personal experience of Guangzhou. I know there was a lot of Africans in Guangzhou that were there illegally. Okay.
Now, Africa is a big continent. Can you make that any smaller?
No, I can't. I don't know specifically which part of Africa they're from. I've seen it in the news that they've had this problem, and I've witnessed it myself have this problem. I have been approached numerous times in Guangzhou by people from Africa that have tried to sell me drugs. I have never been approached by Chinese people that want to sell me drugs. China do have a problem with immigration. They will deal with it on a stricter basis than the UK.
About 18 months ago, there was a serious lockdown in Guangzhou because of the coronavirus.
Correct.
A larger number of Nigerians were asked that they had to leave their apartments, and eventually they had to return home. Do you think that alleviated some of the illegal immigration problems?
I have no idea really, because I didn't follow that story closely. I was aware it happened. I was aware there was a big backlash to it. But again, I think part of the problem and there was a couple of anti-China YouTubers who pushed heavily on that. But I think there was things that were taken very out of context at that time, and I think people need to look at the bigger picture. And I think that's always a danger when you are watching a small 30-second or a 1-minute clip of video on any social media. And I'll give you another example of this, right? When the pandemic first appeared here in China, right? There was a big lockdown in Wuhan.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And that was heavily criticised. Oh, it's draconian measures, blah, 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 by all the Western press. And then a few months later, all the West did exactly the same thing. Yet it was reported very differently. But during that time, there was about a 30-second clip of a person being welded into an apartment. Now, I don't know the location in China where that was. I have no idea where it was.
I saw the door being welded.
Yeah. Now, I spoke to a number of Chinese people about that clip. And I had different answers, right? Some people says, yeah, that's wrong. I agree, it's wrong. But then I had some other Chinese people saying, but what about if that was someone that needed to be contained and kept coming out of his apartment, didn't listen to what he was told, right?
Yeah.
How are they going to solve that situation? Okay, they can either put him in prison, or they can, force him to stay in his apartment. I had other people say, well, maybe it was in a very rural area and that's the only idea the police could have. Now that was taken that clip was taken without knowing any of the other. Now, I don't know any of the other context, but there will be a reason that happened. But of course, on social media, then people are going, "Oh, they are welding everybody. They are welding thousands of people into their apartments." Now, I was in Shenzhen at the time of the pandemic. I was pretty free to roam around wherever I wanted to go. You know, there was other provinces where you could only go out of your apartment on certain days, depending on the severity. The pandemic wasn't very severe in Shenzhen. I could come and go whenever I pleased, as long as I abided by the rules. That I wore a mask, I contaminated, I can wash my hands at certain places, I didn't get too close to other people in closed spaces. I was free to come and go. So it's just really saying that everything needs to have context, and a lot of the time these negative things are spread without the wider context of what's going on.
There's been 2 occasions that I know where Lee and Ollie Barrett have made the media, the mainstream media in the UK, and possibly worldwide. One was, I think, was in the Times newspaper.
Times, yeah.
Yeah, and the other one was recently on a BBC.
Correct, on their website.
On their website, yeah. And they said some things that were really untrue.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And recently I saw, Lee hasn't seen it yet, I saw a documentary where a BBC's chap is saying on Chinese social media, and he's been condemned for it by the Chinese and maybe even kicked out, where he was saying Chinese people are letting Chinese people drowned in the metro system because of the flooding. You know, they're allowing it to happen. He twisted it. You know, some people passed away because the floods were devastating. What do you think? What do you think should be done against Western media who literally try to create some kind of mayhem? I
really don't know what you can do, because they
should action be taken against them. Should they be sued or lawsuits taken out against them? Should they be imprisoned?
I don't know about imprisoned. I really am not sure what should be done. I think from a point of, I really don't know. I don't know how you deal with it, really, because
it's serious. It reaches millions of people.
Both of the articles on us were from people who weren't even in China.
Yeah.
So they were reporting from outside China. I think it's, I honestly don't know how, because I think sometimes if it's a blatant lie, I think there should be some sort of legal action. But how do you define whether, because two people can look at a situation and see it very differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's depending on the bias you have in the first place. And I actually feel that a lot of Western media have a bias already towards China. So they try to fit their story to that side of the narrative. People could argue the same about me. I have a positive bias about China. So I guess when I'm reporting my not reporting, but when I'm making my videos, they have that positive bias. But I am a kind of positive person. You know, I feel there's enough negative news in the world. I don't want to add to that. So I want to, although I know that China's not perfect, just like nowhere's perfect, I'm not really interested about, making videos about negative things, because I'm a positive person. I want to make videos about positive things. But going back to the question about what should be done, I think if it's blatant lies, I do think some legal action should be taken against not them necessarily personally, but the organisation they work for. And this is really, really interesting. There was an American media corporation trying to recruit, and they were recruit staff to report on China. And the advert, actually Daniel Dumbrill on his spoke about this. They were kind of advertising that we want something that will push a pro-democracy angle about China. So it's they're already trying to recruit somebody with a very skewed bias on China, before they've even given them the job, and it's like, wow, And I think this is why more and more people are moving to sort of media like YouTube. And I think this is why people like the BBC and the Murdoch press are attacking us, trying to make up all these lies and falsehoods that we're being paid by the Chinese government to make positive videos instead of just etc. Because it goes against their narrative, and we're obviously starting to cause them an issue.
This kind of social media is easier to shut down and block than mainstream media.
Of course, yeah. Absolutely.
Is that fair?
Very unfair. Yeah, very unfair. You know, and
so,
I think
does that indicate that mainstream media have too much money?
I don't necessarily think it means they have too much money. I think it means they have far too much government influence.
Well, the money, the money thing leads to...
The BBC like to say they're an independent media, but they're so far from being independent. It's unbelievable, you know. And there's documents recently come out to show that they were colluding with spy agencies on Russia, you know, and it'll be very interesting. Something, and sadly, I probably won't be around, but we have laws in the UK that after 50 years, government documents can become public. I love this time we're going through now. I think is going to be a very historic time. One, we've had the pandemic, and we have this really sort of geopolitical issues. I think it will be so interesting when those documents start coming out in 50 years to really see what was going on. Because I think there's a lot going on now just to stop China growing and prospering. Because it will, you know, you look at the Western countries, they've been used to imperialism for so long, and America have been, you know, used to being the number one world power for so long, and China are challenging that, and I think that's causing those Western countries a huge problem. And I think there's a lot going on now. There's a lot of lies being told. There's a lot of bullshit being made up just to try and stop China overtaking them. And I think it'd be very interesting to see the truth behind a lot of what's going on now in the years to come. But I probably won't be here by then. You know, I'll be 110.
Then maybe you will.
Maybe I will.
Yeah. Okay. So before we wrap this up, there's the British Empire years ago, and history is not my best subject.
It's not my strong subject either.
But it was very, very powerful. We ruled the seas, and we conquered lots of places. I feel, this is what so you agree or disagree, I feel that China could have an empire without conflict, without a war. Now, I've heard Lee discuss with other YouTubers, and I've heard many YouTubers talking about building up navies and soldiers and air force, and I think it won't happen. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope it never happens. I don't believe any country could ever invade China. This is my belief. And succeed in whatever they're trying to do. They can't conquer China, it's too big. You know, they can't conquer small countries, you know, and the citizens of China will stand by their country no matter what. And you and I'd better leave pretty quick, because we will be unfriendly no matter how much we know the locals. I think so. Because they will rise and think we can't be trusted. You know, when COVID hit China, the people I knew, a lot of them didn't trust me and thought I wasn't safe. You know, stay away from Tony, you know. And all the people in my apartment, you know, they would, you know, use the stairs and not the lift if I was in the lift.
I kind of experienced that a bit, but not from Chinese people I knew. From Chinese people who didn't know me, but Chinese people I knew were fine with me, actually.
Okay, so I think it's possible, because of the way it's dealing with the Silk Road and expanding and helping most countries in construction of roads and other aspects.
Well, I think it's that the West don't like this, because actually they have not really helped poorer countries that much. They've exploited them. And these poorer countries, and we're talking, you know, mainly, you know, there's a large part of this is Africa. they've been exploited by the West over the last 40 years. Now, China
Africa?
China have come along and gone, right, okay, well, we want to do deals to have you resource now, but we're going to give you things in return. We're going to build you roads, we're going to build you railways, we're going to build you infrastructure. And I believe China will be a massive world power. It's inevitable that they're going to become the biggest economy. that is going to happen. Whether it's in 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years, they will be the biggest economy. I think China want to conquer the world from a business and economy point of view. I don't think China are interested in starting wars and fighting. Now,
absolutely, yeah.
I think, and what I find is really crazy, China are quite happy to cooperate with other people to benefit both. You hear all the time, China want win-win.
Yeah.
And you see that in low-level business here. They want cooperation where we can both benefit. And I think China as a country want that. And I often think that if over the last 20 years, if America had just spent half of their military budget on improving their country, improving the infrastructure, spending more on R&D, they could have still been light years ahead of China, right? But while the US have been spending billions of dollars every year, trillions of dollars on wars all around the world, which all they've achieved is destroying countries. They haven't achieved. I would ask a question to you, Tony. How have American people benefited from any of these wars that, you know, in Iraq, in Syria, in Afghanistan, in Libya? How have the American people benefited from that?
There's one thing that you have overlooked. It's improved the ego.
That's
the only thing. Ego.
Well, you know, so there's that. And then the other thing is that America are obsessed by making money and improving the wealth of a relatively small group of people. You know, we all hear this 1%, and it's true, you know. This 1% control 90% of the wealth. Yeah. And that's been at the expense of a majority of the average people. So the average people in a lot of the Western countries have actually seen their standard of living either stagnate or decrease.
Yes.
Whereas the average people in China have seen their standard of living increase. And you know, you've only got to look around China, unless you've walked around with your eyes closed. You walk around China and you see they have some very, very impressive infrastructure. And that, whether that be telecommunications infrastructure, roads infrastructure, rail infrastructure, buildings infrastructure, very, very impressive. Way ahead of any Western country. That's because they haven't spent huge amounts on fighting wars all around the world. And I think it's kind of sad that America have done that. If they'd have invested just a fraction of that money in their country, they could have still been way ahead of China.
I think you may have said this particular point in several videos in the past. I'm worried you might
it's trying to get the point across, because I think a lot of Western just don't see that, you know. They do see it, but they
don't want to believe it.
They don't want to believe it, you know.
Because if they believe it, it means they're wrong.
Yes, yeah.
And they have listened to
and this goes back to that, you know, why do Western countries keep trying to push their system onto China? Why can't they just let China have their system, which is obviously working for the Chinese people? A majority of the Chinese people are happy with their system. Why do the West have this thing? You know, do you see China trying to force their system onto everybody else? No.
If the way of life for you in the last 15 years has been what some may say communist, do you prefer it?
I think the system here has afforded me a very good lifestyle. Now, to a
so
point,
that's a yes.
That's a yes. I'm privileged, you know, in the sense that I probably earn more than the average Chinese person, average Chinese person. I live in Shenzhen. I actually feel poor in Shenzhen. Not poor, but I feel normal in Shenzhen. There are a huge amount of people surrounding me that are way more wealthier than me.
Yeah.
Right? There are a lot of people in China that are way poorer than me. But I realise that I have an extent on what I'm earning from my YouTube income. I have lived a fairly privileged life here.
Yeah.
And if I was living in the UK, my lifestyle would certainly not be as good on the same level of income, because the policies of communism, or let's say socialist capitalism, have afforded me to be able to do things because it's kept the essential items, what I pay every day, my electricity, my gas, my rent, way lower than the society and policies in the UK or America.
It seems, from what I've seen over the last few years in particular, the most highlighted thing as far as democracy is concerned is people talk about freedom. So just to end this video, what part of democracy do you feel is the most important that possibly doesn't exist in China? What part of democracy do you think you may be giving up?
I really don't know. I can't answer that question, because I feel coming to live in China, there's nothing I've had to give up.
Okay, all right.
Honestly, and I had a conversation with my American friend, and we were chatting, say, well, name something that Western countries are currently doing better than China. And we struggle to find anything.
Oh, propaganda.
Yeah. They're definitely doing propaganda better. And I mean that's down to that, because America, from a point of controlling the narrative, are very, very slick. You know, they made us all believe that Saddam Hussein had got capability to kill us all within 30 minutes, and it was just a pack of lies. You know, they got to Iraq, they invaded, and they found nothing. They found nothing. They destroyed the country. They've just done the same with Afghanistan, you know.
I know.
They've done the same with Libya. They've done the same with Syria. They've just destroyed countries and destabilised the Middle East. You know, for what? They're very good at getting, like you say, propaganda, at getting their people to believe lies. And I think they're doing exactly the same again with China. And I'd urge people in the West to come and see for yourself. You know, there's a huge amount of foreigners who live a very happy life in China, like me and you. And I'd urge those people, instead of sitting behind your keyboard and your screen commenting on things you don't know about, come and see for yourself. You know, come to China and see, and I think you'll find it's very different to what your media and your government are leading you to believe.
Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. Just to highlight some of the things that I've asked Lee today. He wasn't prepared for them. He didn't have prior notice of the questions I'm going to ask him, and he answered them honestly, although sometimes he did get off on a tangent and
I always
slightly
do that.
He always does. That's a part of his character. Lee's opinions and my opinions on China are very similar. I want to stress these are our opinions. If I'm wrong on something, then so be it, I'm wrong. I'm not trying to force my opinions onto you, the viewer. Okay? If I've researched something and it's wrong, then it's wrong. Okay? If you go to another site and you think, oh, Tony's wrong on this, or Tony, whatever, then disagree. Don't hate me for it because I'm wrong, because I'm not pushing it. I'm not mainstream media. I'm just saying what I've seen.
An opinion shouldn't be right or wrong. An opinion should be exactly that, your opinion. Now, what I find strange is that people attack you for having an opinion. If I'm telling somebody something that's factually incorrect, based on the evidence that I have in front of me, then I can understand they attack me. But for having an opinion on something, people should accept that. Now, if like, we sometimes don't have the same opinion on things, but I don't dislike you. I won't attack you because of that. I'll try and reason with, why do you have that opinion? Because all opinions are built on experience of your lifetime, right? That's what builds your opinions, your experience you've had. And I would say exactly the same as that. An opinion, you know, it is just that, an opinion. You know.
So there we have it.
Yeah.
he goes off again. So right, so I'm going to end there and let Lee say his farewell to that camera, and until then I will say take care, and over to Lee.
So just if you like the channel in general, we have a lot of different content on here. Consider hitting that subscribe button. If you did like this video, I apologise now that there's no subtitles on this video, but it's a very, very long video and it would cost an absolute fortune to put subtitles on something like that. So it is an unsubtitled one. But as always, for now, take care.